So to explain how I ended up with Nu Skin, which is something I never thought I would do, I really want to kind of go back in time and share my whole story. So I don't always do this, but I think I have time. But you mentioned my family, and they're really important. So I'm going to show you my family. These are my girls. That's Phoebe on the left and Jenny on the right. My husband and I met when we were older in life. So these are our children. These and our Nu Skin family. So I'm so used to doing things in translation. I'm waiting for someone to interrupt me and say, "Hey, I need to translate." So, so this is Phoebe and Jenny. And when I was growing up, I was really lucky. I had parents who I learned a lot from. And I'd say the four things that had the biggest impact were um, to be committed, to have commitment. If you look at the picture on the right, my parents, that was at their 60th wedding anniversary. That was about 6 or 7 years ago. So they're committed. These people are committed. They always had integrity. What they always did what they said they were going to do. If they said they were going to be somewhere, they were there. If they said they were going to pick me up at a certain time, they were there. And, you know, I think this is so applicable in our business because these sort of little things is how we build rapport. You start to trust people because they showed up when they said they would show up. I look at this with prospects and like, if they're late for a meeting, it gives me pause. And are they someone that's going to have issues in other areas? Is it someone I can trust? And I always, when I send something to a prospect, I always say, as promised, here is the link to that video, because I want them to start subconsciously thinking, oh, she did promise that and she came through with her promise. So I definitely learned a lot of integrity from my parents. The third thing I learned was service of others. And at their 60th wedding anniversary, everyone told stories about what my parents had done for them and how they'd served them. And the fourth thing that was, I just thought normal, my parents bounded out of bed in the morning to get to work. They loved their careers. My mom was a professor and a department chair at a university in California. And my dad was a biomedical engineer, and they loved their careers. So I assumed I would go to a good university, I would graduate, I would find a career I loved, and I would live happily ever after. I'd probably get married in there somewhere, have a family. And so when I wanted to find a company that had those same values I was raised with: integrity, commitment, and service of others. So when I graduated from UCLA, I traveled for 3 months with my girlfriends, and I thought that whole time about what I wanted to do. And my parents had always said, well, you got to do what you love. So I started thinking about what I loved. And from the time I was little, the things I loved the most were spending time with my friends and my family, traveling, and helping other people to really reach their potential, or at least explore their potential so they could live their dreams. And I was like, wow, what career could I go into where I could hang out with my friends and family and travel and help other people to explore their potential and live their dreams? So I thought, fairy princess would be a good one, because there was no other career that I knew you could do those things. So I kind of set off to work and was expecting to love it. I started in advertising, and I started in November. And then May hit, and I was like, where is summer vacation? Like, why do I have to come to work all summer? Because I'd been in school for most of my life. And I really thought, this is a problem. I think I hate working. What if I hate working? And so I went back to graduate school, because I thought, at least if I could find something where I'm serving other people, maybe I'll feel better about working. So I got a master's in psychology and planned to be a marriage and family therapist. And I had this plan because I thought, well, I'm going to get married and have kids. So I need a career where I can be flexible and I can, do a couple hours of counseling and then come home and be with my kids and pick them up at school. And when I finished my licensure, I was in California at the time, and it was 3,000 hours of counseling and then a written exam and an oral exam. And when I finished, I think I was 31 or 32. And I honestly didn't have the confidence to start my own business, which is what a therapy practice is. And I wasn't particularly entrepreneurial. So I decided the next best thing, I would go into pharmaceuticals. I don't know where in the universe this came to me, but I was like, oh, pharmaceuticals, that would be great. At least I'm helping people. I get to travel. So I did that for a couple years. It was with a big company. Loved the training, loved the people. Would actually lay in bed after the 3 months of training. It was like going to nursing school or pre-med. After the training, I started the job part where you go and call on doctors. And I really enjoyed some of the doctors. But after about a year and a half, I remember laying in bed, looking at the ceiling and thinking, how am I going to do this for one more day? Because I didn't care for sales and I definitely didn't feel fulfilled. And I was working all the time. Luckily, at that point, a friend of mine recruited me to come work for his healthcare company. And it was a little startup in San Francisco, and I was running one office. And it's actually funny, anyone who knows anything about finance, I was in charge of P&L, and we discussed EBITDA. And I came home one day and asked my roommate what P&L stood for because I had no idea. And it's profit and loss if you were, I had no idea, but I was in charge of it. And so I spent the next 5 years working my tail off. I would literally give, we were smart startup. I literally gave blood, sweat, and tears because I was putting tables together. We'd get furniture from IKEA. I was often not sleeping. It was super stressful. But as the company grew, I grew. And I eventually was running all of Northern California. And then I was running all of California. And then at the 5-year mark, we got a new CEO. And he called me into his office and he said very kindly, you're the most talented person we have in the company. And he gave me a huge raise. He gave me all of the Western United States to run and a lot more responsibility. So now at this point, I am not spending any time with friends and family. In fact, I remember many a Friday night calling my boyfriend at the time and saying, I can't make it. I'm sorry, I know we had a date, but I can't get home. I have too much to do. I had the money to travel, but it was so stressful to get the office ready for me to leave and then to come back. And literally this is before the BlackBerry, I would have 1,000 emails that I personally had to respond to with some sort of intelligent answer. So it became really unfun to travel. And it's funny, I remember one time being in Hungary and looking at real estate and thinking I would give anything to be able to live in a country like Hungary. I loved Budapest. I loved Prague. And just thinking, what, are you insane? Like, you don't speak any other language but English. And there is no career that you can do in these countries, so give it up. And then the third thing was I really didn't feel like I was serving anyone. I wasn't really helping anyone achieve their potential. I had people that were growing in their careers, but it just wasn't fulfilling. And then 6 months later, the same CEO called me in and he said, we're looking to be acquired by another company. And he pulled out the budget and he held it up and he said, you're the biggest line item, so we're going to have to let you go. I was almost 41. I was single. I had sacrificed so much for my career, and I literally had 4 months of severance to show for it. And I was halfway between utterly panicked and completely joyful because I had been wanting to leave for years, but I knew they couldn't live without me, which turned out not to be true. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, and the scary thing was, the more I climbed the ladder and the more successful I got, the more I lost track of my dreams. And so when I was released from my career, I didn't even know where to start because I had forgotten what my dreams were. So that's when I got into business coaching and really started kind of down the personal development path. And luckily met my husband. So that changed a lot of things for me. And over the next few years that we were together, he had a very successful financial services firm in Silicon Valley. He did very well. I didn't need to work. And so I taught psychology. I ended up working for a friend in his technology company and getting a very good position there. But it was not as stressful because I really didn't need to work. And then we bought a beautiful home in a high rise in the city that I loved more than anywhere in the world until I moved. We lived in San Francisco, and we were really living one of my dreams. I have a friend who we were talking about our problems, as people do before they join Nu Skin. And she said, I have a fun game. Let's talk about problems we'd like to have. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have the problem of having a beautiful home with a beautiful view, but I never get to appreciate it because Jeff and I travel so much. And within a couple of years, we were literally living that life. I was like, oh my gosh, I've created this problem I wanted to have. But the other problem was, as we were traveling, Jeff in his old career was always on the phone. This is literally, we're staying at this beautiful place in Tuscany and he's looking for a cell, because he was the guy, like he couldn't go on vacation because they needed to talk to him. So if a very affluent client needs you and they want you on a plane, you're on a plane. So Jeff's stress level was high, but then the financial crisis of 2008 hit. And our lives were completely changed. I remember being in the beginning of the crisis, we were staying at Sandy Tillotson's place in New York City at the top of the Time Warner building. Sandy Tillotson, for those of you who maybe knew, she's one of the founders of Nu Skin, and she happens to be a very dear friend of ours. And so we were staying there, and I remember Jeff on calls in New York, sweating. I mean, just so stressed. And at that point, he said, I think I see where this is going, because the markets were crashing. And he said, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. And at this stress level, I could very easily die young. And his father had died at 62 of cancer. So Jeff was very aware that health is the most important thing. So he spent the next 2 years really looking at companies to buy and technologies to invest in and other opportunities. And one of the things he had in mind was he wanted leverage. He really wanted to be in a career where he wasn't always responsible for everything. And he knew, the issues with manufacturing and licensing and taxes and all of the things that he was not sure he really wanted to deal with. He'd been a bankruptcy attorney prior to consulting. And he was like, there's so much risk. And now at that point, we're in our mid 40s. And he's like, I don't know that I want to take on this risk. I mean, we've accumulated a certain amount of wealth and I don't want to lose it all starting a new business. So he had a great idea. He said, we were going on vacation with our dear friend, Sandy Tillotson. And he said, I want to get Sandy's advice. So he had his little file with all of his businesses and companies he was looking at and technologies. And he said, Sandy, I'm thinking about changing careers. So I want to get some time with you. And I want to kind of go over the options I'm looking at. And she stopped him and said, Jeff, you have to look at Nu Skin. And Jeff had been a product user at that time for 10 years. And he loved the products, but no one had ever approached him about the business. I don't think he ever thought he would look at it as a business. And he looked at it as a business. Sandy shared some things with him that you'd hear in any business briefing. She said, actually probably you wouldn't hear in any business briefing. She said 3 things. She said, at that point, from 2008 to 2010, our stock had gone from $7 a share to $33 a share. And she said, the reason for that is Wall Street sees we're a legitimate science company. They see the investments we make. They see that we had at that time purchased LifeGen Technologies. The year we joined, Forbes magazine or Forbes.com had rated us one of the 100 most trustworthy companies. And she said, the most important thing to him, she said, if you do this the right way, you could condense a 20-year work life into 5 to 7 years and create something that can be a legacy. And so Jeff did all his financial research. He's a numbers guy. He knew what EBITDA and P&L was way before I did. And he did all his financial research and he said, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do this with the rest of my life. And my response was, that is great, babe. I know you'll be successful. I want nothing to do with this. I don't want anything to do with network marketing. Don't want anything to do with selling any kind of thing. But more power to you. Please don't tell our friends, which is a tough way to start any business, because if you were opening a pizza restaurant, you would have to tell some friends. So I did agree to go with him to see the company. And what I found was that this was a company that had the values I had. They were totally committed to our future. They were committed to science. They were committed to the integrity of the products. They may not always be perfect, but they will always make things right. So ton of integrity, very focused on serving others. And even the employees seem to love their careers. They seem to love what they do. And I was like, wow, okay, you can tell our friends. Like I'll go that far. You can tell our friends, and I'll use the products because the science is real, but I still don't think it's for me. And then I heard about what the distributors were doing. And actually, in particular, I remember hearing Sean Brady's story of going after the tsunami in Southeast Asia in 2004, collecting, and you can see the food here, collecting food and Vitamils and money and treats, and going and helping rebuild in Sumatra and in different parts of Indonesia. And that had my heart. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the kind of thing I want to do. But I never had a career I could leave and come back and it would still be there, let alone do it with my husband and have the money keep coming. And Sean mentioned when he was gone, his check actually went up. And I was like, that sounds like a dream. And so that was the moment that I said, okay, I'm in. I want to do this business. This is legitimate. And this is what I want to do with my future. And through that, we've had opportunities I never imagined. We have some friends in Japan who invited us to come speak there. And I learned, this is a picture I took in Japan. And I was looking down the aisle and I saw the CEO of the company kneeling in front of each person and saying, hey, how are you? And he's stopping here in front of a gentleman who was one of the first to open Japan. He was living in Hong Kong, and he's got Parkinson's. And you can see Truman at that time, who was the former CEO, was really concerned and really spending the time. And I was like, man, you just don't see that from a publicly traded company every day. And so as I've gotten to know Nu Skin better, in fact, at this particular trip, this is something that Nu Skin never advertised, but this was after the tsunami. The tsunami in Japan, where they had the tidal wave and they had all the radiation. And I only know this story because a distributor shared it with me at this event. When the tsunami hit in Japan and the radiation levels were dangerously high, every other big company was pulling their executives out, making them come home or go back to the US. Our three founders and our CEO and Ryan Apiersky, who's now president of the company, flew in to the danger zone and gave out Vitamils and personally donated money. One of the founders donated $1 million to relief. And I was like, why didn't they advertise this? Well, they don't do it for that reason. They don't do it to promote themselves. They did it because it was the right thing to do. And that was the moment I was like, wow, the moment. I've had so many moments over the years where I was like, this company is amazing, like truly amazing. So that brings me to a topic I want to cover. So I was asked to tell my story and talk a little bit about recruiting and vision and timing. And I was a very hesitant recruiter. I was shy and unsure. And I lived with, whoops, that's not the right slide. I lived with this guy. These are literally, we're in traffic. This is on the left. We were driving from Vienna to Budapest and we had a traffic jam. Actually, it was funny, like a peanut butter truck overturned. And so there was just peanut butter everywhere in the road. So we were stopped. And he met these gentlemen from Romania and just shared with them a little bit about Nu Skin. And on the right, this was actually coming home from Sandy Tillotson's ranch. There was some construction and he stopped and got out of the car and said, well, I should talk to her. Her skin is thrashed. We need to help her. So I'm living with this guy who will recruit anybody, anywhere, anytime. for two reasons. One, he loves people. And two, his belief level from the time we started was so high. And mine really wasn't. I didn't have the confidence in the business or myself. I did have the confidence in the products, but I was just really shy about recruiting. And what I have come to discover is, and I want you to answer this. I have three questions. The first is, what business are we in? So what business do you tell people you're in? What business do you think you're in? What is this business we do? And after much evaluation, I realized we're in the relationship business. That is the business we're in. And I love relationships. I'm a marriage and family therapist. Like, there's nothing better to me than relationships. And I think I had this weird sense that me, because in some professional careers, you kind of leave you at the door and you're just professional. And at Nu Skin, it's important to be professional, but also to bring who you are. And so when I realized it was about relationships, I was like, oh, well, I like that. That's important to me. And I enjoy that. So the second question is, how do we build relationships? And this was something I was actually pretty good at. And we build relationships really through building rapport. And rapport is when two people realize they have something in common. So there's so many ways to get there, but the easiest way to build rapport is to ask people what's important to them. Ask people about themselves. And I think that's when the business started to change for me, was when I realized it was truly about other people. It was truly about asking, what's important to you? Why is it important to you to spend time with your kids? I mean, that seems like an obvious answer. Obviously, I want to spend time with my kids. Well, why? Why is that important to you? I want to be a role model for them. What kind of role model? It's really important to dig down with people and find out why is it important? And some people don't even know what's important. Making a lot of money. Why is it important to make a lot of money? So I can provide a good life for my family. What about that is important to you? What is a good life for your family? And really getting into that relationship and building rapport. And that's what we do. And the people who are best at this have the best businesses. And, it's such an honor for me to be on this call and to get to, Paul and Lisa Park, like this whole line you're from a dynasty of Nu Skin. I mean, Ronnie Park is a legend. And to get to learn from him and his family, like that's amazing. And it's clear that he knows how to build relationships, because you wouldn't have this kind of success without that. And I know for a fact, Paul and Lisa are great at building relationships, because she came up to me after an event, introduced herself, and was so friendly and outgoing and gracious and humble that I was like, oh my gosh, like, I love these two. They're so nice. That's how you build a relationship. That's how you build rapport. And so it's funny. That's one of the reasons I show my dog. Half of the people are going to go, oh, I love dogs. Dogs are so cute. But that's part of relationship building. The problem I had was that I was really good at building rapport and not as good as making anything happen. So I was like, great, I have a new friend. All right. And what I have come to really appreciate is that it is our job to guide people. A lot of people have no idea what they want. And I was always pretty shy or pretty subtle about things. And now when I'm in a relationship and they've told me they want time with their kids, or they've told me it's important to be with a company that cares about sustainability in the future, or they've told me they want to lose weight, whatever it is my responsibility to guide them in the direction that's going to get them help. And I can truly say, my life wouldn't be the same if we hadn't found Nu Skin. I look back, and first of all, the high rise we were living in San Francisco is now tilted and sinking. Some of you probably saw it on 60 Minutes. We would still be living there, and my husband might be dead by now. And we would have this thing hanging over our head. And I'm like, that alone, let alone the people we've met and the travel we've gotten to do. And I think about it and I'm like, how can I not share it with people? And I know Claire McDermott, one of the first, well, the first distributor, always says, you owe it to people to share this business. First they need to know how much you care, and then you can share the business with them. And I've met people who this isn't the business for them. I had someone actually say, it wasn't pleasant the way she said it. She's a New Yorker, so she's kind of harsh. She said, I don't give a lick what someone's why is. And I thought, probably not going to be very good at our business. And I had a friend once tell me, she's an attorney, and she said, Diana, I don't really like people. And I was like, probably not going to be very good at our business. There are people who really aren't cut out for what we do. But I would say most of the world, probably 80%, they need what we do. And most of them don't know that they need it. So we owe it to them to recruit them. And this is a lesson I learned when I lived in Hungary. This is my friend Adolf. And Adolf was a sportscaster in Hungary. And he's now a blue diamond. No, he's now $1 million circle. I think he just hit Team Elite. Anyway, he came up to me. I had done my story and a business briefing, and he came up to me after and he said, you really showed your age up there. And I was like, pardon me? And he said, well, you said you didn't like network marketing. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, he was there with some younger millennials. And he said, they don't have any negative opinion of network marketing. That's just old fashioned. And I was like, wow. And he's like, everything they do is networking. Everything they do is get a coupon if you share this with your friends. They get it. And I was like, you're right. I really showed my age. And I think about the timing, and I'm like, we're in a time where everyone needs to be able to work from home. Everyone wants to travel again, and they're going to need to make money when they're traveling. So they want to do that. When Jeff and I joined a little over 10 years ago, I think it took us 37 months to hit Team Elite qualification. The year we qualified, I think there were 5 accounts that were Team Elites in the US. This year, there's at least 25. So when I look at the timing on when you start, like I wish I'd started when Ronnie Park started, frankly. But since I didn't do that, I would love to be starting right now. And I can truly, honestly recruit people knowing this is the best time to start. And when it's funny, we went by Nu Skin the other day because we live in Utah, and Ryan Napierski was there, and he was giddy with excitement. He said he had a meeting with the global product team, and he said, you guys are not going to believe what we have coming. He said, we have a whole new team and new products. He was so excited. He's like, you guys are going to be so excited about it. And he couldn't tell us anything else, but he was really sincerely, deeply, truly so excited about what was happening next. And the fact that there is a whole new team working on it. So when I look at the timing, I'm like, there really isn't better timing. And when I look at why would someone, particularly a professional, want to join Nu Skin, and it doesn't have to be a professional, it could be anybody, but for me, I relate more to professionals because I like people who are on time. I like people who, and you can be a professional and be a stay-at-home mom, but there are certain qualities professionals have. So why would they join Nu Skin? And to me, the first reason is unlimited earning potential. Like my husband made a lot of money in his previous career, but every year he started over. And so there was only so much you could accomplish in 1 year, and then you were at zero again. So we had some really good years, but there was a potential that if we'd kept going, we would have some bad years. And in Nu Skin, even if you have a bad year, like my husband and I took 18 months off because he was diagnosed with cancer. So he needed some treatment. So we moved from Hungary back to the US. I think about in his old career, what would we have done? He couldn't have just not worked for 18 months. That would have crushed us. But we were able to not work for 18 months and our check came every month. And we were there, of course, if our team needed us, but we really just took care of both of our health. And again, back to unlimited earning potential. Like if you're not limited, as hard as you want to work, as much as you want to do, you can make that money. The next thing is community and recognition. Um, I can't imagine how I feel so grateful that I have friends all over the world. I mean, to have friends in Europe and South America and Asia, and that I get to do this with people all over the world, and that we're sincerely excited to recognize each other. Like, I remember when Paul and Lisa hit Blue Diamond, like it's exciting for me to get to see other people's accomplishments. And there aren't a lot of careers where someone else's success doesn't somehow detract from yours, because there's usually the one big job, not the 4,000 big, there's one opportunity, not infinite opportunities. So having that is huge. And so many people don't get recognized at their careers. They're just a pat on the back. Hey, thanks a lot. That's it. Or maybe a raise, 3%, nothing. The third is free 5-star vacations. My husband always says, he's like, we took some really nice vacations before, but nobody paid for them. Like, we had to figure out where the money came from. Personal growth and development. Anyone who wants to grow as a person, like, and I've talked to so many people recently who've mentioned that this is something they're interested in. And I think the world is becoming more aware, and now is just a great time for that. Fulfillment, not even sure I spelled that right, but fulfillment, for me, I was not fulfilled in my previous career. And so this was a godsend for me, because I actually get to live my purpose every day. And I mentioned at the beginning, my purpose is to help other people explore their potential so that they can pursue their dreams. Because if you're not living at your full potential, you'll never get to pursue your dreams, let alone achieve them. And then the last thing is, one of the big trends right now is people wanting global cross-border businesses where they can do business in many countries. And this was one of our goals, was to not be tied to one economy. And we are not tied to any economy. Anywhere that Nu Skin does business, we can work. So there are so many reasons to join Nu Skin, and to join Nu Skin now. And I am so grateful I got to be on your call. I'm looking at my time and I'm like, okay, we're done. But I'm so grateful. I really appreciate the invitation, and I look forward to meeting all of you in person when we're able to travel again.